Long ago, in a time when the land of Africa was still cradled by the hands of the gods, there lay a village called Iroko. This village nested between the jagged peaks of the Upper Mountains and the vast shimmering expanse of Lake Alafia was a place of unparalleled beauty and bounty. The people of Iroko were blessed with fertile fields that yielded abundant crops, and the lake, a gift from the great water deity Olokun, teemed with fish that fed the entire village. Life in Iroko was peaceful, harmonious, a balance struck between the earth, the waters, and the skies. The villagers of Iroko believed that this prosperity was a direct blessing from Olokun, the deity who ruled over all waters. Olokun was said to be a being of great power and mystery, residing in the deepest parts of the lake, where no human eyes could reach. The people made regular offerings to Olokun, giving thanks for the abundance that flowed from the lake and asking for continued protection. But one day, everything changed. The sky, once a brilliant blue, grew dark as thick clouds gathered over the village. The winds, usually gentle, began to howl with fury that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest warrior. The waters of Lake Alafia, which had always been calm and inviting, churned violently as if possessed by a malevolent force. The fish that had always been so plentiful disappeared, and the crops that had once thrived began to wither in the fields. It was as though the very land had been cursed. The people of Iroko were stricken with fear and confusion. They had always honored the spirits, made their offerings, and followed the rituals passed down through generations. What could have brought about this sudden misfortune? The village elders, who were reverend for their wisdom and knowledge of the spiritual world, gathered in the sacred grove, a place where the veils between the physical and the spiritual world was thin. In the center of the grove stood an ancient tree, its roots deep in the earth and its branches reaching toward the heavens. Around the trees, the elders began to chant, calling upon the spirits for guidance. They offered kola nuts, palm wine, and other sacred items to appease the spirits, hoping for a sign, a message, anything that would explain the calamity that had befallen them. As the chanting grew louder, the air around them seemed to thicken, and a cold wind swept through the grove. The fire in the center of the circle flickered, and the smoke from the offering curled upward, forming strange shapes that seemed to dance in the air. The elders fell silent, their eyes fixed on the smoke, waiting for a sign. From the shadows of the grove, a figure emerged. Yeye Oshun, the oldest and most reverend of the village's oracle. Her hair was white as snow, and her eyes, though clouded with age, still held the sharpness of one who had seen much in her lifetime. Yeye Oshun's presence commanded respect, and as she approached the elders, they bowed their heads in reverence. Olokun is angry, Yeye Osun announced, her voice carrying the weight of centuries of wisdom. The balance between the land and the waters has been disturbed. Our offerings has been ignored, and the spirits are displeased. The chief of the village, Agemo, stepped forward. His brows frowned with concern. Agemo was a man of great stature and strength, known for his leadership and courage. But now, standing before the oracle, he looked like a man burdened with the weight of his people's suffering. Yeye, Agemo said, his voice trembling slightly. What has caused this anger? We have honored Olokun as we always have. What could we have done to bring such misfortune upon our village? Yeye Osun closed her eyes, her face a mark of concentration. The silence in the grove was palpable, the only sound the rustling of leaves in this wind. After what felt like an eternity, Yeye Osun opened her eyes, fixing her gaze on the young men of the village who had gathered at the edge of the grove. Her eyes settled on one in particular, Afolabi. Afolabi was a young man of 18 season, known throughout the village for his courage, strength, and boldness, curiosity. He was the kind of boy who could not resist a challenge, who was always the first to dive into the deepest part of the lake, the first to climb the tallest tree, the first to laugh in the face of danger. But he was also impulsive, often acting without thinking of the consequences. A great offense has been committed, Yeye Osun declared, her voice filled with a sorrow that sent a chill down the spines of those gathered. Olokun's sacred waters has been defiled. A trespasser has taken what is not theirs, and the balance must be restored. The words hung heavily in the air, and a murmur of fear rippled through the crowd. The people of Iroko began to whisper among themselves, their eyes darkening nervously as they tried to comprehend the gravity of what Yeye Osun has said. Who could have angered Olokun, the great deity of the waters? And what could have been taken that would bring such wrath upon the village? As the whispers grew louder, Afolabi, a cold dread settled in his heart. His mind raced back to the day not long ago when he had ventured farther than even before, beyond the familiar shores of Lake Alafia, into the waters that his father has always warned him were sacred and forbidden. On that day, Afolabi had been fishing with his father and a few other young men. The day had started like any other: clear skies, warm sun, and the gentle sound of the waves lapping against their canoes. But as they moved farther out onto the lake, Afolabi had felt a strange pull, an urge to explore beyond the boundaries they had always respected. His father, busy with his own fishing, hadn't noticed when Afolabi quietly paddled away from the group. The waters has been strangely still that day, and the usual sound of the lake, the croaking of frogs, the calling of birds, has seemed distant and muted. Afolabi has casted his nest into the water, expecting to catch the usual bounty of fish, but when he pulled the net back, he was shocked to find not fish, but something else, a large, beautiful shell, glowing with a soft ethereal light. The shell was unlike anything Afolabi had ever seen, with intricate pattern that seems to shift and change as he held it. Without thinking, he had hidden the shell in his satchel, intending to show it to his friend later. Now, as he stood before Yeye Osun and the gathered villagers, Afolabi's heart pounded in his chest. Could the shell he has taken be the cause of Olokun's wrath? Had he, in his curiosity, brought this curse upon his village? Before Afolabi could see anything, Yeye Osun's gaze, sharp as a spear, locked onto him. Her eyes seemed to pierce through him, seeing into his very soul, uncovering the guilt and fear that he has tried to suppress. "Afolabi," she said, her voice now a whisper, yet it echoed in his mind like the crash of a waterfall. "You have taken what belongs to the Oluweri, the guardian spirit of Olokun's domain. You must return it, or the curse will consume us all." The crowd gasped and all eyes turned to Afolabi. His father, who had been standing among the elders, stepped forward, his face a mixture of shock, anger, and disappointment. "Afolabi, my son," his father said, his voice heavy with the weight of his words. "Is this true? Did you take something from the sacred water?" Afolabi, feeling the full force of his action bearing down on him, could only nod. His voice, usually so full of confidence, trembled as he spoke. "I didn't know, Baba. I didn't know it was sacred." Yeye Osun approached Afolabi, placing a withered hand on his shoulder. Her touch was surprisingly warm, but her grip was firm, as if anchoring him to the earth. "There is still hope, Afolabi," she said, her voice gentle, yet filled with urgency. "But you must act quickly. You must embark on a journey to return the shell to Oluweri. Only then can the balance be restored and the curse lifted." A cold dread gripped Afolabi's heart, but he knew he had no choice. The fate of his village, the lives of his family and friends, rested on his shoulders. He would have to journey into the unknown, face the wrath of the Oluweri, and beg for their forgiveness. The path ahead was fraught with danger, but Afolabi was determined. He had made a mistake, and now he would do whatever it took to make it right. The villagers watched in solemn silence as Afolabi prepared for his journey. His mother, tears in her eyes, placed a small charm around his neck, a talisman for protection, blessed by the ancestors. His father handed him a simple yet sturdy dagger, its blade reflecting the dim light of the setting sun. "For protection," his father said, his voice cracking with emotion, "and for courage." Yeye Osun handed him a small satchel filled with herbs and powders, remedies for the journey ahead. "This will guide you and protect you from the spirits that may wish to harm you," she said, her voice calm but filled with the gravity of the task before him. "But remember, Afolabi, the greatest protection comes from within. Trust in your heart, and the spirit will see you through." With a final glance at the village he had known his entire life, Afolabi stepped into his canoe and pushed off from the shore. the waters of Lake Alafia, once so familiar and welcoming, now seemed like a vast ominous expanse, hiding untold dangers beneath its surface. As the canoe drifted away, the villagers stood in silence. Their hopes and prayer followed Afolabi into the night. They knew that if he failed, the curse would remain and the village would be lost. But they also know that Afolabi was their only hope, a young man who had made a mistake but was brave enough to face the consequences. And so, under the light of a full moon that bathed the lake in silver, Afolabi began his journey, a journey that would take him to the very heart of the mystical world, where the spirit and the deity ruled, and where the fate of his village would be decided. What would Afolabi encounter on his perilous journey? Can he return the sacred shell and save his village from the wrath of Oluwere? Find out in our next episode of The Forbidden Shell. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to my channel on YouTube, The Ancestral Oaths. To stay updated on this trailed tale, you won't want to miss what happens next.